Welcome back, everybody. Today I want to show you a new update to the aspect size node, which is part of DJZ-Nodes. There's only 2 nodes in there right now, so this will be hopefully pretty quick, but I'll spend some time going over how this actually works because it's not immediately apparent. In some of my previous workflows, I used aspect size, and I've basically improved it because the downscale factor, which is if we were to ask it to give us an aspect ratio close to 1024 by 1024 max, sometimes it's not going to be quite correct. So this would enable it to be closest 16, so divided by 16s, it's going to give you the closest, right? And this would help with the way that Cascade works. It fixed a problem with stage A, I think. Anyway, I found that if you use 64, then it will improve the outputs for SDXL and SD 1.5. It's actually an old trick, and a lot of the aspect ratio tools already have this feature. I think that the way I've done it might differ a little bit, but it's probably just how the math, I haven't really looked. But yeah, so what it means is that you can then alter the modulo or downscale factor. The code's all here, so you can see exactly what the math is. All I've done is I've exposed the downscale factor. The default is 16, just like before. I haven't changed the original node, but I've added a new V2 node, which you can change it to 64 if you want. That's the whole point. I might make it default, but like I said, when you change values like that, sometimes it can break things, which is why I made the second one. Anyway, let's show you how it works. So if we take a look at the standard prompt for SDXL setup, so this is the default prompt. I've set it to 20 steps, 4 CFG with EULA CFG PP and SGM uniform. We're using a denoise of 0.95. That might actually have to be 1 with SDXL. So let's just get our first image and see how it looks. All right, and that's a bit weird. So let's try another one. Of course, these are settings for colors. Yeah, so let's just tweak this first before we do anything. So let's just go back to EULA and 7 and try that. So before we even get started, I just want to see that it's making something which okay, that's interesting. Of course, this is the, it's on instruct. Okay, that's why it was giving us, it was using the instruct version. So yeah, let's just put it back to the proper SDXL base. I was wondering why I was getting some crazy images. It's because my prompt is obviously written to tell it to change the image. That was not too bad. I kind of like that. So let's see what we get. There we go. So that's more like what you would get from a standard SDXL output, right? So we're going to be looking at the empty latent image nodes. So I'm going to first convert widget to input width and convert widget to input height. So that means we can now feed width and height into this. So to keep it simple, I'm just going to hook it straight up. So let's go with aspect size V2. And I'll leave it on 16 and it will show you the difference between V1 and V2. So SDXL 1:1. Now, if I just do that, it's probably already changed it, but whatever. It's okay. So this is the image we're going to use for comparison. That was using modulo 16. Now, 1024 by 1024 is already correct. So if I just show you what I mean by that, we'll remake the image and it shouldn't change. It's identical because 1024 divides by both 16 and 64. However, not all aspect ratios will always divide cleanly by 16 and 64. This is like a math problem. And the code in here deals with it quite efficiently. So let's just give you an example, right? So if I go with 3 to 4, 4 to 5, which is a typical portrait aspect ratio. And on 16, we get this. Now, if I show you 64, it's different. And not just different, it's slightly improved in terms of accuracy. So this isn't bad, don't get me wrong, but this is a little bit better. Now, obviously, that's subjective, but, you know, it just generally tends to be the case overall, you know. So if I was to, for example, I mean, what we could do is we could just clone this and then do parallel, but that's not what I'm here to do. I just wanted to show you that there is a difference, and generally speaking, you're going to get a better image when you're doing it with 64, because you're getting a different width and height in pixels, basically. This is safer, okay? I find you get more problems. So do you know what? If we just go like this, and let's just get a prompt of a person. So let's just say, there we go. That should be enough. Okay, so from that we get this. Now, if I go to 64, let's just take a look at that so you can see it on the screen. Okay, boom. There we go. So if we compare the two images, check out the backgrounds and the floor and things like that. The person in the rain is pretty good, but it's getting a little bit confused and repetitive here for the rest, right? Now, if I take a look at the one which was corrected, that's a much better photograph. There's cars now with reflections of headlights. The texture of the ground is much better. If you take a look at the ground here, it's just reflecting these signs. And the people are also all on the pavement. There's like a road now. This is looking a lot better, I reckon, anyway. I mean, like I said, it depends, and you know, there's luck in the draw as well. That's pretty much this what's going on. Now, how do we use this with one of my workflows? Now, let's jump over there. So this is the last workflow that I've brought out, which is basically in the download on for colors. So we got our width and height, and it was being driven by the depth map. So the control net input image, that's where it's getting the width and height to drive the latent. Okay. So we're just going to go through how I would solve that challenge. How do we get aspect size into something like this? Because let's just turn off some of this stuff here real quick. So we'll put it on input 1, turn off the IP adapter. So we're going to be using, don't need the comparer really either. Just going to use depth uncanny with colors basic. So if we just run the image, we got it on fixed? Yeah, it's on fixed. So if we run the image, Jungle City, we've got this. Okay. It's going to give us an image. So ControlNet's going to do its thing with the supplied inputs. And the way this is set up, if we take a look at the thing, it's set to keep proportion. So whatever we put in here, it's going to use that to set the width and height. All right, but it's going to resize it to a maximum of 1024 by 1024. So in that way, it's going to, as its off aspect, probably the width will be 1024, and then the height will be whatever it ends up being to a multiple of 64. And again, that's why I was talking about before. We're trying to match this so that everything is the same size. Okay. So while it continues to load in, I'm going to start. So obviously we could just do what we did before, which was aspect size V2, and then pick SDXL, and then pick 64. And then this is already exposed, so I will hook that up. All right. But then we've got a problem, because now the latent is 1 to 1. But this isn't one-to-one. Only the width is. So I'm going to leave it as it is. So here's the output that we get from that. Not stunning, I'll admit, but that's okay. It's fine for now. So we open it up. It's basically an image which matches the same, composition. But it's lost. There's no colors. It doesn't have the person, anything like that. So now I could fix that by altering the prompt, but that's not what I'm trying to do. So first of all, let's just run the prompt now with this at 64 and keep proportion. We'll see what happens. Sometimes, or in the past, it used to actually throw a big error. But I think it will run. It'll just look funny. So we've got it on keep proportion. There we go. So what's it done? It's drawn a box from the top left corner down, and the body of the person has become the building. So if we show you there, that's the person sitting down now, that building on the right. The rainbow has become the sunset in the clouds, and then it's drawn jungles, because that's what the actual prompt is. It looks the jungle stuff. Okay. So obviously we might want to fix that. So for example, what I might want to do is put it to fill crop, which is what I am going to do. I'm going to say fill crop, right? And then also another thing I could do is I could drag this all the way back to here, and then we could expose the width and the height, both of these. Whoops, I did it the wrong way around. That's going to be weird. It's going to be the other way around. That's my fault. All right, so then we're going to connect the width and the width, the height and the height. And because I opened these in the wrong order, that's why it's switched around. That's all that's happened there. Now I do tend to use like a set variable, right? I do tend to use a set and then just set width, set height, and then I can call it anywhere I want. But I just wanted to show you visually, this is where they're connecting, okay? So we've got our load image into the resize, and then the resize is setting a variable for canny map, because this is the canny input. This is the depth input for control net. So that's what's going on. And all I've done is I've said, right, I'm going to let aspect size control the resizing. And then because we've set it to fill crop, right? What it'll do is instead of like just taking a square from there, it's going to blow it up or shrink it down or crop it. Crop fill. Okay, so let's do that again. And at 1-to-1, it doesn't seem to make much sense. But when we start doing, in fact, it makes it a bit more. There we go. Right. And so now what it's done is it's taken the, I think it's what it's done is it's cropped it a little bit differently, like I say, for 1-to-1. Now, if I wanted to do 4-to-5, so we'll make it wide. Do that. This won't work yet. Okay. So we're nearly done. I just wanted to show you that you can resize the image, basically. It probably would help if I had something that matched what I'm doing, what I'm working with a little bit better, but it's okay. It's okay. So if we go like, yeah. Okay. Wants me to do it again. So I can actually get the image, and then we got to actually, yeah, okay. Hang on a sec. Right. I need to change this to base out, and then it will actually compare with the whatever's feeding control net here. Okay. There's a bit of a rainbow still. There is a bit of a rainbow up in the clouds, you know. So I wonder if we just change this prompt just a little bit. So how about we change it for something that I got from one of the authors? Change it to that one there. I kept a couple of default prompts up here. This is actually 2 prompts, but you can use them as one. Just as an example here. You got something to mess with. Okay. So while it's making that one, I will change the aspect ratio to be 4:5. So we're going to go from landscape to portrait, but with the same input, which is landscape. Okay, that's pretty not following it at all. It's not following it at all. That's okay. It's all right. It's a very strong prompt. Okay. And then we're going to change it to tall aspect. See, this is what was prompted. I can't really complain, but it's just funny how it's doesn't, I don't even know. Yeah, there we go. It's just interesting how it's cropped it. So okay. And just for fun, what we'll do before we wrap up is turn on the IP adapter and then set it to the Model 2, which would be for the IP adapter. I've got more of this same guy here. Whoops. And so we'll plug that in. Give that one a go. Right. So the reason I wanted to do this was because, one, the downscale factor, default 16, was hidden in the code. And really, we needed to change it to 64 for SDXL and SD. And it does usually have a beneficial effect on the generation. So that's nice. And then I also wanted to show you, well, how would you use this to keep everything the same size and match the latent? Because often if you mismatch the latent size, it can throw errors. And so this is how I do that. Let me just delete that one there. I don't need that one there. So this is how I manage that. I basically have, this is like a dimension commander, which gets supplied to anything which needs a width and height. And then because this is in charge and it's setting the resize amount, and because you have it set to fill crop, it shouldn't matter whether you put tall or it shouldn't matter what aspect ratio you use. Now, if you want to make sure that it actually picks the middle of the image, there is something else that you can do. But that involves a crop tool, right? And then you can pick center. I believe if I just go crop here, I just type crop, image crop, right? That's not the best one. I think there are, sorry if that's your thing. I didn't mean to insult you. I just mean that I know there's a better cropper which you can just pick. You can just pick like center, top, middle and stuff, and you don't have to put numbers in, because that's a bit laborious. Where are we there? Crop, image crop. I swear there was image crop plus. There we go. So it gives you an offset, and it gives you top left, top center, all the usual stuff you would expect. It looks like it defaults to top left, so you might want to change it to, center. Usually is what people want. Okay. So that explains how you can use this to give you a safe dimension, which goes into the latent better in the end. Because rough numbers tend to produce weird images when you make your height and width the image that you want. And the main reason for having an aspect size node was just to make sure that it's safe. It doesn't just give you the aspect ratio, it also makes sure that it's divisible by 64, and that helps. So, and then obviously how you actually drive the empty latent image. Now, this does make some good images. Oh, nice. There we go. See, now we're describing the image a little bit better. And we've got the IP adapter on as well. That helps. Now we're getting something which is like somewhere in between the Chinese lady and the image that we're trying to work with. So yeah, that's kind of cool. I like that. So finally, what I'm doing is I'm currently working on the next iteration of the Koda pack, which is probably going to be, this is getting towards a finalized. So the yellow over here in the top right, that's all sampler garden stuff. So you can delete those or add as many as you want. The workflow is going to come with one, and then you can duplicate it and change it. So just to give you a quick peek on the sampler garden, there it is. You've got 2M Alt SGM. This is in the CNET off section, so it's going to be using the condition base. So you've got the option of using condition control net on, which is right in up here, cond neg and cond pos. You've got base and CNET to choose from. So when you copy this, you can choose for it to be CNET on or CNET off, because it does have obviously different conditioning. I'm hoping to make that a little bit easier in the future, but what I'll probably do is try to figure out how to make it all switch, you know, but we try to make it better every time. This is a perturbed version, right? So obviously some of them are not perturbed, like this one's not perturbed. This one's just EULA CFGPP, but it does use ControlNet. Even though it says off, I think I changed it back to on and just didn't change the label. But you can, like I said, make any of these. The idea is to eliminate the need for a big grid, because we all know there's about 30 different samplers now, and there's all these different schedulers. If you wanted to make a grid in the old way to find the best settings, you're going to have to you make thousands of images. But if you know roughly what the best settings are, you can plug them in and check them. And then you can just change that one little bit, like, oh, maybe just a bit more CFG is all we needed to get there. We don't need to make like thousands of images to find out anymore. We can just put our hit list of favorite settings. So if you like EULA or if you like DPM, you can just have it preset in here, name the group. And what I've done is I've created a better way of doing the groups now. So as you can see, they're kind of split up. So Sampler Garden has its own set of controls. The mode switch deals with just the actual generation stuff. And we've got face swap in there now. And then obviously the upscale stages are in their own. And I've included the face model in there too. So you can create face model and then do the face swap. The face swap in this version is going to come with the reactor masking helper, so you can have some occlusion from hairstyles or whatever's in front of the face. And it's also coming with the new face booster, which I hope to cover in a future video. And then last but not least, we now have something really cool. Now this image here is actually 91 megabytes. So what I've done is I've generated with colors this beautiful burb. And then I've used color match with this beautiful image, which I made using the process we've just been looking at, right? And I've used that to color match it. And then this is the result. Now, obviously, I would use some clever masking here, right? But here's my burb. And then here is the color match. And that, even though it looks like he's standing on a side of beef right now, the rest of it is nice, vibrant, colorful. So what I would do is I would actually isolate the burb and maybe the plant, maybe the flowers. Don't know, you know. And then basically mask, you know, I'd combine these layers for the final piece. Okay. I think that looks really cool. So, yeah, so obviously you could just use the same image to color match, and that will result with a better upscale, okay? Because it's going to, every time it stretches out the balloon, it's going to print the exact same color image on top, all right? And so every time you stretch it out and fill in with new details, it's going to color, and it stops the bleaching problem, which you would sometimes get when you do your upscale. So that means that every time it does the upscale, it's going to do the color match again, it's going to upscale again, and again, and again. And you'll end up with just a more vibrant upscale. So there it is. Obviously, you can simply bypass the color match node if you don't want it to do it. So it's not a big deal. But more on that in the actual update for this workflow. So aspect size, what does it do? Well, it fixes a problem with numbers that don't divide by 64, because typically when the diffusion goes together, it likes things that divide by 64. It's clean math and you get a cleaner, more accurate generation. That's my best explanation, all right? But it's been an old tip for a long time. So while you can get it from my GitHub, you can actually now get it from the manager. So if I go into custom nodes and just hit DJZ, you will find it. And there it is. You can just install it from here now, which is amazing. Sorry it took me so long to get round to it. I had to figure out how to actually submit the thing. And I think I probably did it wrong, but they saved me in the end. So essentially the node packs up there and any future nodes are going to go back up. You'll see the details over on the GitHub, but your nodes should automatically update when you go to fetch them. So with that being said, that's everything I got to show you. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.